Hi, everyone, and thanks very much for joining. I think I've met most of you, but for those who haven't, my name's Andrew McCusker, and I head the Education Finance program here at Opportunity International. As Atul pointed out, COVID-19 has had massive impacts across a bunch of sectors in the end markets that we work in. But probably the most devastating, certainly from our perspective, is the widespread school closures. Across the globe right now, there's around 91% of schools that are shut. So all of the great work that we've been doing at OI, governments have been doing, other NGOs have been doing over the last 2 decades to get kids into school, and the progress that we've made for the last at least few weeks in most markets that we work in, that's been unwound. Now, we hope that a bunch of the school closures and travel restrictions that are causing this are temporary, and then we can come out strong on the other side. But in the meantime, this is having some pretty significant events or impacts on a bunch of people across the education value chain. So obviously on the learners, being out of school makes learning difficult, in that it's probably more challenging in the markets that we work in than it is here in the UK or where you guys are in North America. As you guys are aware, we have great internet connection here. We all have great devices. We can see each other, talk to each other. In most markets that we work in, that's not the case. It's really challenging for the schools to be communicating with parents and to students while school's not operating. Secondly, on the teachers, the schools that we work with on average employ about 14 teachers each. Right now, while schools are not operating, it's going to be really challenging for them to generate any revenue. While it's challenging for them to generate revenue, about 50 to 60% of their operating costs is typically spent on teacher salaries. The biggest risk through all of this, or one of the big risks through all of this, is that school leaders really struggle to retain their teacher workforce. And it's something that we're working to try to stop as much as we can right now. Thirdly, on school leaders, the entrepreneurs, I think Mary Lynn mentioned that we went to visit a few of these school leaders in Ghana earlier this year in January, just before the COVID-19 restrictions were placed on us. But all of these school leaders, there are around 3,944 of them that are currently in our program. 13,944 that are currently in our program are not offering any services to pupils right now, and therefore are struggling to generate any revenue. And the fourth stakeholder that's impacted through all of this is the financial institutions that we work with, the education lenders, who, while schools are shut, are going to have a really hard time collecting loan repayments from their school clients and school fee loan clients.
It is such a harsh world out there, huh? Well, so how are you continuing now that the schools are all shut down? What changes have you had to make?
Yeah, there's a couple of different program areas which are impacted. So the work that we're doing in education quality right now we've been forced to turn digital. There's effectively, we used to, as some of you will be aware, we used to deliver technical assistance training for capacity building for the school leaders and the teachers in what we called cluster groups, where we'd bring the schools together to meet once per month to share experience and best practices with each other. Now that our freedom of movement has been restricted in every market that we work in, we've been forced to move into digital channels. We've been really surprised at the engagement in our end markets by using what we would consider basic social media channels to not only deliver content to the school leaders and the teachers, but also create communities of our school leaders and teachers where they're solving each other's problems. We'd historically used an app called WhatsApp with our cluster leaders, but over the last couple of weeks, we've launched what are called Facebook Live pages. And these Facebook Live pages are for groups in a country where they can sign up, receive digital content from us. So this content is in 2 areas. One, helping school leaders to manage their business through this downturn. And secondly, helping teachers to deliver lessons virtually to parents and ultimately to pupils. What we've been really surprised in is, one, the engagement that we've had from schools in these platforms in really low resource settings. So in Uganda, we have about 260 of our schools that are now using this platform to not only absorb content, but also as a community forum where they're posting questions, and other schools are coming on here and offering advice and suggestions based on what they've seen in the market, which is really cool. It's effectively doing our job for us. On the financing side, it's been really challenging. The financial institutions are impacted not just in their education lending business, but across a bunch of different sectors from this. I mentioned earlier that it's challenging for the financial institutions to get loan repayments from schools while they're closed. So what we're doing right now is working with the financial institutions to help them to restructure loans to schools, to offer the schools repayment holidays right now while the schools are closed. That will help the schools to reduce their cash flow burden right now and allow them to focus on other operating expenses which are not so flexible, things like paying teachers and paying rent and things like that. The goal of all of this is to have these schools in place and ready to reopen as soon as the government lifts the travel restrictions in their markets.
It's a big job and so multifaceted. I can't even imagine which hat you know to put on every morning when you get up. Ina, we're happy to have you on the call, and you're in the thick of things. I just learned yesterday that you're the mother of 6 children, all in the house with you, and you also have this job you do. Tell us how the COVID-19 is being received by the community. What's the community doing in relation to this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Marilyn. Happy to be here to share what exactly is on ground. I am in Uganda and I'm based in Kampala. So right, you have said it very right. Talking about how the community is responding towards the COVID-19. I like to begin with myself, like you have mentioned. I have 4 biological children and 2 spiritual children in the house. And these range from 13 years to 4 years. So you can imagine the different areas. So just talking about how we are responding, in Uganda currently, the country has been under lockdown for about 14 days. And yesterday when the 14 days ended, the Ministry of Health together with the president gave new directives, and we were given another 21 days to make sure people stay at home and keep safe. But this is becoming a little bit challenging on the side of us as families, as churches, because churches are closed down. Schools are closed down, over 73,000 schools being, closed at such a moment. And then also families, thinking about people that were used to, little children getting food from school, and also people that used to go working, on a daily basis, getting $1 and be able to feed their families. It's a very challenging thing. So many of the people in my community are going hungry. They are really struggling, even when the government is coming in to support with a little bit of maize flour and beans. 5 kilos cannot take them longer. So it's a little bit challenging on our side as families, but we are learning to adjust because we know all these precautions have been made to make sure we stay safe and stay away from the virus.
Yeah. It's a hard job for everyone, isn't it? And certainly for those quarantined in a small house on top of each other with no food. So how are your teams preparing, working with these clients that you have?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really wonderful question. It's usually a wonderful thing to be by the side of someone in a time as this. And one of the things that we are doing as education quality team is to really be there for our school leaders, the teachers, and then eventually be able to support the learners and the parents on ground. So the teams, we have stayed in touch with the schools directly through phone calls, because this has been, part of our day-to-day kind of work. We stay in touch. We kind of become part of the school families. So we become like sounding boards that school leaders can speak to. So first thing that the teams are doing is to be available, as an ear for the school leaders to speak to, because it's such a difficult moment for people that have gotten access through financial institutions. And at a time as this, they're not able to pay back their loans. So it's a little bit of a stressful moment. So they need somebody to talk to. And so the education specialists have stayed on ground, communicating and listening to them, giving them a positive idea, telling them that things will change and things will get better. better. And the other thing that we continue to do is we continue to avail them with the right information, because we know a lot has been going around on social media. People have been passing around, you know, information. For example, in Uganda, on some of the WhatsApp groups, you see people saying, if you want to increase your immunity and you keep away from COVID-19, you've got to mix thinner with lemon. You know, everybody knows that thinner is really dangerous to humanity, but somebody passes on that kind of information. So it turns back to us as educators and as a support team to the schools to avail them with the right information to make sure they know that there's actually no treatment as of now. To make sure everybody stays safe. And I think just like Andrew has already mentioned, we still keep in touch to support the schools in terms of school development planning, and also thinking about calculating, staying in place as leaders, talking about assessing and calculating their cash burn rates. We have provided the Facebook pages for every country, and it's very interesting to know that many of them are really getting engaged. So we also appreciate the fact that schools had already worked on their schemes of work, the teachers were already engaged with the children. Now, the most important thing is supporting them on how exactly the right channels to be able to deliver this very content they had, you know, prepared, to be able to reach the teachers wherever they are, and eventually to the parents. And it's a little bit challenging because some of the parents are actually illiterate. Maybe they don't know how to read. So part of what we are doing is to avail the teachers with lesson templates, lesson plan templates that they can use to support the teachers, and then they can be able to pass on the content to the parents. Some of the content that you have seen there, some parents, for example, in Uganda, have not even experienced, you know, homeschooling. It's a whole new thing to them. So they need a lot of support on how to manage these children that are already going through a lot of stress because of hunger. A lot of parents are involved in domestic violence. So the kids are already stressed. So parents need a lot of support to understand that how they can support the learners in that kind of environment. So we already have a toolkit for the school leaders to avail to their parents to be able to continue, you know, supporting and engaging the learners from wherever they are. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's interesting to see some of those pages that were put up that show us the kind of content you're receiving to help do your job, and that then the school's proprietors receive as well from you.
Yes.
Andrew, is there anything else that you want to add to this for other areas other than just Uganda? What might be the same or different in this arena?
Robinah's done a really good job of explaining the process that we've been through and the pivots in the education quality program. On the work with financial institutions, it's effectively twofold. It's helping the financial institutions to manage this crisis, so how they can offer schools loan repayment holidays and still manage their liquidity without receiving loan repayments for a period of time. And secondly, looking at other opportunities for them. One product that we've been talking to a number of financial institutions about in the product design phase is a working capital loan facility. So that's effectively a loan that could be made to a school at a time like this to help effectively bridge their financing gap while the schools are closed, so that they can pay teachers, pay rent and their other fixed costs like utilities. There's some financial institutions that are interested in doing that, and we think it'll be a great way to stabilise the school's cash flows as well as the financial institutions at the moment.
It sounds like you're being the government over there, kind of the loan programs to the schools and keeping businesses open. It's amazing, and thank you for that intervention that you're doing. You know, you have an outstanding team, there's no doubt about it. I've met some of them, not all of them. Robinah is one of them. But how are they managing during this period? And how are you managing to keep them going?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you guys all got to meet Robinah. She's one of our best. We have about 62 people that work in education finance across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe and North America. Like all of us, every single one of our staff members right now is working from home and remotely. And while we're kind of used to the technology here, it can be very challenging, not just for our staff, but also for their counterparts in the schools and the financial institutions to get used to this way of working with each other. It's been a challenge, not just on the productivity side for the financial institutions, our staff, but also having a bunch of other competing demands in personal life, like Robinah, now with her 6 children in her house with her all the time. It comes with a whole bunch of challenges, as it does for me in London, and I'm sure all of you guys in the Americas as well. The great thing I think about our staff and our program is that working in education in the markets that we do is really uncertain. The same goes for the financial institutions. Our staff are used to a lot of things not going the way that we planned, and have developed this kind of resilience, which I think is really cool. It's not easy, but I guess the thing that gives me a lot of comfort right now is that our entire team is focused on effectively 2 things: helping these schools to survive through this period and do the best they can to engage learners through this period. And secondly, helping them come out the other side at least as strong as they entered into COVID-19.